But if Kenyans want, they can always interchange it with Skiza ground. Our party symbol is a listening ear. So, tukisema DCP, unasema Skiza ground? DCP? DCP? Ama Skiza ground? DCP? 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 Tuko hapo. Our party colors are neon green, brown, and white. We believe as a party every Kenyan must be listened to by their leaders. This listening must not just be listening for the sake of it. It must be deliberate. It must be planned. It must have a purpose, and it must be sustainable. At no one given time in our leadership shall Kenyan be left behind or remain unheard. As the party leader of the Democracy for the Citizens Party, I commit that I will listen to the people of the Republic of Kenya and live to their aspirations. As you all know, I have been a people's person, listening to every voice, especially those in the deepest corner of our villages. The Democracy for the Citizens Party is not just an ordinary party, but a political ideology and philosophy for every Kenyan, irrespective of their faith, creed, age, tribe, or caste. The Democracy for the Citizens Party serves as the biggest political movement of our time in Kenya since 1963. Under the guidance of the party's National Executive Council, I'll spend the next 2 years with the people of the Republic of Kenya, traveling to every corner of our country, to every village, listening to the people, to build one of the most formidable political movements since independence. It is after this we shall craft our manifesto based on your needs as the rightful people of this great nation. We, the DCP party, are committed to the respect of human rights and freedoms, integrity in leadership, rule of law, social justice and fairness, devolution of power and resources, equity, equality and inclusivity, unity in diversity, accountability and transparency, citizens' effective participation in governance and decision-making. In the ideals of democracy and good governance, our party structure is elaborate. We have the following party organs: the National Delegates Convention, NDC, the National Governing Council, NGC, the National Executive Committee, NEC, the National Management Committee, NMC, the National Election Boards, NEB, the National Commissions through committees, the National Assembly Caucus, the Senate Caucus, Governors Forum, MCAs Forum, the National Secretariat, Eminent Persons Caucus, People Living with Disability Caucus, the Diaspora Caucus, the Youth Caucus, Religious Leaders Caucus, Women Caucus, and Student Caucus. Dear Kenyans, so far we have received thousands of aspirants from all corners of the country who want to run for various elected positions. We welcome aspirants to various positions from governors, senators, members of the National Assembly, women representatives, and members of the county assemblies. I want to assure all our aspirants who are willing to vie for any elective position using our party that we have no favorite candidate. The party belongs to the people of the Republic of Kenya. I therefore urge all aspirants to immediately register as members of the party starting now. It is the people of Kenya who give us the candidates they would like to have as their leaders. In any case, we have under Article 19 of the party constitution a National Elections Board that is independent, which has spelled out rules and duties regarding electoral conduct of the party primaries. As such, The National Elections Board shall, in consultations with the National Executive Council, organize, coordinate, and supervise all party elections and nominations in accordance with the party nominations and election rules and procedures. And let me clarify for the avoidance of doubt. This party has no favorite candidate. This party has no provision for direct nomination. This party believes in let the people decide. And let me confirm also to the avoidance of doubt. I have many leaders who have stood with me in very difficult times, who have walked with me in my journey. But I want to confirm, close as they are to me, much as they have stood with me, none of them is entitled to a direct nomination. So I want to encourage everybody to be prepared to face each other in the party primaries. As I conclude, allow me to thank every Kenyan who believes in the call for patriotism, every Kenyan who believes that we, the people, deserve better every day, that we, the people, need to be respected, that we deserve better services, and that our taxes must count. My dear countrymen, my people, the great people of the Republic of Please be seated. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you here for this very brief ceremony. My dear countrymen, today marks an important day in the history of politics and democracy in Kenya. We meet here in response the state of our nation. Socially and economically. Indeed, today is a Kenyan moment. Following the need for social change, economic transformation, and political reimagination of our nation, I bring forth my response to the call by millions of Kenyans from across our nation who have called on us to rise to the occasion for a voice of reason and a listening ear, a right they have been denied for far too long. Patriotic Kenyans here at home and abroad have spoken to us clearly towards reforms for a better Kenya. The current despotic regime has failed to listen to the voice of the Kenyan citizen. That is why our great nation is sinking under heavy and punitive taxation, poor public delivery, skyrocketing cost of living, raiding of the payslip, poor health care, bad policies, and poor governance, insecurity, pathological lies, among others. Listening to the people of Kenya, who are supreme, is a calling. Leaders must make this calling a deliberate choice and not a government favor. Active listening to the people is therapeutic, a solemn duty, and the right thing to do at any given time. Dear Kenyans, I've spent the last 6 months in my Omonyoro residence listening carefully to Kenyans who voluntarily called on me in the village. I've widely consulted Kenyans from all walks of life. I've also engaged in countless consultative meetings and debates with opinion leaders, religious leaders, the business community, Kenyans living in diaspora, the professionals, university and college students, and ordinary Kenyans. I've held countless virtual meetings. I've held countless media interviews on both national, local, and vernacular stations. I've further engaged the young people on all social media platforms, including X and TikTok. One thing is clear, Kenyans are bleeding, they have nobody to hear their cries. Kenyans have confidently told us that the socio-economic and political problems we face today as a people are as a result of leaders not listening to them. Kenyans have told us that they want to actively participate in the leadership and governance of their country. Kenyans have boldly told us that they have solutions to the problems we face today. Kenyans have told us that their aspirations and their hope as a people, united under one nation, is under serious threat. Kenyans have told us that the future of this great nation, we have many of them who are millennials and Gen Zs to lead our party. Like-minded Kenyans have spoken to us and told us that they are tired of corruption. They are tired of abductions and extrajudicial killings. They are tired of state capture. They are tired of organized and state crime and violence. Kenyans have told us that they need a peaceful nation where the rule of law is respected, where education system is working, and where health care is not a privilege but a right. Kenyans have told us that they need a nation that is respected at the international forum. Kenyans have told us that they want to be listened to. My fellow countrymen, our nation needs a restoration of dignity in the spirit of the unfinished business of multi-party democracy. Our sense of duty to patriotism and nationhood towards a new Kenya, where every citizen is listened to, has come. My countrymen, it is time to provide a conducive environment for peace, justice, and speedy restoration of development, respect for the rule of law and human rights. It is time for liberation of our beloved country. It is time for our nation to take off socially, economically, and politically. History will be kind to us for taking a bold move to listening to each other. Kenyans have told us boldly to form a political party that will form an inclusive and a listening government, a government for the people, by the people. Consequently, we took the challenge to a cause that many Kenyans believe in. I made a promise to you that in the month of May 2025, I would unveil a new political party whose philosophy resonates with you. As you all know, I'm a truthful man and an honest man. I keep my word and my promises. I detest lies, and that is why I disagreed with the liar number one. We finally have a political party that belongs to all of us, where every Kenyan is treated equally. Our new party is Democracy for the Citizens Party. Our party slogan is Sikiza wa Kenya. But if Kenyans want, they can always interchange it with Sikiza ground. Our party symbol is a listening ear. So, tukisema DCP, unasema Sikiza ground? DCP? DCP? Ama Sikiza ground? DCP? 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 Tuko hapo. Our party colors are neon green, brown, and white. We believe as a party every Kenyan must be listened to by their leaders. This listening must not just be listening for the sake of it. It must be deliberate. It must be planned. It must have a purpose, and it must be sustainable. At no one given time in our leadership shall Kenyan be left behind or remain unheard. As the party leader of the Democracy for the Citizens Party, I commit that I will listen to the people of the Republic of Kenya and live to their aspirations. As you all know, I have been a people's person. listening to every voice, especially those in the deepest corner of our villages. The Democracy for the Citizens Party is not just an ordinary party, but a political ideology and philosophy for every Kenyan, irrespective of their faith, creed, age, tribe, or caste. The Democracy for the Citizens Party serves as the biggest political movement of our time in Kenya since 1963. Under the guidance of the party's National Executive Council, I'll spend the next 2 years with the people of the Republic of Kenya, traveling to every corner of our country, to every village, listening to the people, to build one of the most formidable political movements since independence. It is after this we shall craft our manifesto based on your needs as the rightful people of this great nation. We, the DCP party, are committed to the respect of human rights and freedoms, integrity in leadership, rule of law, social justice and fairness, devolution of power and resources, equity, equality and inclusivity, unity in diversity, accountability and transparency, citizens' effective participation in governance and decision-making. In the ideals of democracy and good governance, our party structure is elaborate. We have the following party organs: the National Delegates Convention, NDC, the National Governing Council, NGC, the National Executive Committee, NEC, the National Management Committee, NMC, the National Election Boards, NEB, the National Commissions through committees, the National Assembly Caucus, the Senate Caucus, Governors Forum, MCAs Forum, the National Secretariat, Eminent Persons Caucus, People Living with Disability Caucus, the Diaspora Caucus, the Youth Caucus, Religious Leaders Caucus, Women Caucus, and Student Caucus. Dear Kenyans, so far we have received thousands of aspirants from all corners of the country who want to run for various elective positions. We welcome aspirants to various positions from governors, senators, members of the National Assembly, women representatives, and members of the county assemblies. I want to assure all our aspirants who are willing to vie for any elective position using our party that we have no favorite candidate. The party belongs to the people of the Republic of Kenya. I therefore urge all aspirants to immediately register as members of the party starting now. It is the people of Kenya who give us the candidates they would like to have as their leaders. In any case, we have under Article 19 of the party constitution a National Elections Board that is independent, which has spelled out rules and duties regarding electoral conduct of the party primaries. As such, the National Elections Board shall, in consultations with the National Executive Council, organize, coordinate, and supervise all party elections and nominations in accordance with the party nominations and election rules and procedures. And let me clarify for the avoidance of doubt, this party has no favorite candidate. This party has no provision for direct nomination. This party believes in let the people decide. And let me confirm also to the avoidance of doubt, I have many leaders who have stood with me in very difficult times, who have walked with me in my journey. But I want to confirm, close as they are to me, much as they have stood with me, none of them is entitled to a direct nomination. So I want to encourage everybody to be prepared to face each other in the party primaries. As I conclude, allow me to thank every Kenyan who believes in the call for patriotism, every Kenyan who believes that we, the people, deserve better every day, that we, the people, need to be respected, that we deserve better services and that our taxes must count. My dear countrymen, my people, the great people of the Republic of Kenya, the future of our nation remains promising. We'll stop at nothing as a people towards a better Kenya. I must, however, caution that those who think they can mess around with our country. Our message is clear. The people of Kenya have unfinished business with you. We have a date with you in August 2027. Finally, I wish to announce that the National Executive Council of the Democracy for the Citizens Party met on 5th of May 2025, and in accordance with the party constitution, Article 16(2), subsection 2, appointed the following interim party officials whose names have already been submitted to the office of the Registrar of Political, so that the people of Kenya can see you. The Honorable Senator Cleophas Marana from Kakamega County as the interim deputy party leader. Mr. David Mingati Paseina from Kajiado, the national chairperson.
The Citizens Party, DCP, Skiza wa Kenya.
Honorable Peter Mwadhi, Deputy National Chairperson for Strategy from Kiambu County. Gen Z Mabli Sarah Owino, National Deputy Chairperson, Operations, Kisumu County.
DC Democracy for the Citizens Party, DCP, Skiza wa Kenya.
Mr. Hezron Obanga from Kisii County, Interim Secretary General. Mr. Martin Ole Kamwaro from Narok, Deputy Secretary General.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ofisi. Ni mwamko mpya.
Anna Kavu Mutua from Machakos, the National Treasurer.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya.
Evangeline Wajira Joka from Ebu County, Deputy National Treasurer Strategy.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo, itakomboa uchumi wa
Thomas Mwita Nyangi from Migori County, Deputy National Treasurer Operations.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza.
Honorable Senator Franklin Medeka Lintore from Meru, National Organizing Secretary. Mr. Andrew Kiplimo Muge from Uasin Gishu, Director of Elections.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya.
The Honorable Kate Waruguru from Laikipia County, National Women Leader.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo.
chairperson of the Council of Eminent Persons, the Honorable Minor Commander from Nairobi.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uchumi wa Kenya.
The chair of Diaspora Caucus in absentia, David Jenga Gikonyo.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo
the chair of the Religious Caucus, Barnabas Kenywa Mbukethi from Meru County.
Itakomboa uchumi wa Kenya. Uongozi wa kuaminika.
The National Coordinator for Counties, Alex Hamasi from Kakamega.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya.
The Executive Director of the party from Busia, Breda Banjira.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo.
The Secretary for Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations, Christopher Mwadime Mwabingu from Taita Taveta.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya.
The Secretary for Education, the Honorable Mercy Gakuya from Nairobi County.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo.
The Secretary for International Affairs, Alvina Kabura Kamwaga from Murang'a.
Itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo.
The Secretary for Tourism and Environment and Natural Resources, Hussein Athimani from Kilifi.
Itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo. Itakomboa uchumi wa Kenya. Uongozi wa kuaminika. Tunasikiza Wakenya.
John Maraga from Nakuru, leader PWD.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo, itakomboa uchumi wa Kenya. Uongozi wa kuaminika, tunasikiza Wakenya. Inaunganisha Kenya yote, na ni chama cha Wakenya wote. Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo, itakomboa uchumi wa Kenya. Uongozi wa kuaminika, tunasikiza Wakenya. Inaunganisha Kenya yote, na ni chama cha Wakenya wote.
Ambassador Abubakar Abdi Ogle, Deputy National Organizing Secretary Strategy from Wajir.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza
Sarah Wanjiku Diga, National Youth Leader.
Itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. Itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza
Dr. Peter Mbai from Nakuru, Secretary for Economic Planning.
ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya.
Lydia Barasa from Vihiga, Secretary for Health.
Uchumi wa Kenya, uongozi wa kuaminika, tunasikiza Wakenya.
Mr. Hambisi Fraha Chengo from Kilifi, Secretary for ICT.
Ni mwamko mpya, itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya.
Finally, we have now unveiled our party today here in Nairobi. I want to announce that on the 4th of June 2025, we shall officially launch the Democracy for the People's Party in a venue to be announced where thousands of party members and supporters will be in attendance, and I hope to see you then.
Democracy for the Citizens Party, DCP. Skiza wa Kenya.
Long live DCP. Long live Kenya. DCP. 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 Hiyo ndio itakuwa salamu yetu mashinani na kila pahali. Habana, sasa tumetoka huko, sasa tuko mambo ya kusikiza nini? What will happen going forward kwa mikutano? The slogan mnasema DCP, Wakenya wanajibu hata wale wageni hamtaki. Wakimsalimia, wakija Murang'a juu ya gari wanasema watu ya Murang'a hamjambo, mnawaambia tumekubaliana. Wakija waseme hii barabara tutajenga within 6 months, unawaambia
Democracy for the Citizens Party.
Wakisema hii Kenya
DCP.
tutaitengeneza na tuko na mpango, mnamwambia sikiza. That is a new Kenya, and the new Kenya ni ya kusikiza nini? The people of Kenya must have a say the way they want to be governed, na lazima ndio uongoze watu wa Kenya uwasikie, na ukiwasikiza utashika ile laini ambayo inatakikana. Chama yetu ya DCP ni ya kusikiza Wakenya. And I want to appeal to all leaders ambaye wako kwa hii chama na wale mtachaguliwa. That must be your philosophy for you to be a faithful member of this party. You must listen to the people. You must listen to the ground. Na niliambia leaders in our former party wasikize ground. Wakasema I'm intimidating them. No, I meant what I said. Lazima usikize nini? And this party we have unveiled today revolves around listening to the people of Kenya, because the people of Kenya are intelligent. They know what they want. They know where they want to go. They want how they want to be led. All you need to do is listen to them. Nimeshukuru sana DCP. DCP. May God bless you.
Democracy for the Citizens Party.
Ni mwamko itaboresha mfumo wa afya, itaokoa payslip ya Wakenya. DCP itamaliza ufisadi, itamaliza uongo, itakomboa uchumi wa Kenya. DCP uongozi wa kuaminika, tunasikiza Wakenya. DCP inaunganisha Kenya yote na ni chama cha Wakenya wote. Mwako mpya,
Democracy for the Citizens Party. DCP.
Kenya mpya. Mambo mapya.
President Alexander Stubb, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Citizen Television.
Thanks for the invitation.
Let's begin with your state visit to the country. Why are you here?
Well, many reasons. First reason is that there's never been a state visit by a Finnish president, which I was quite baffled about because we do have good relations for over 60 years and we've been quite close countries. Secondly, I met your president at a peace conference in Switzerland last summer and I said, can I come and knock on your door? And he invited me. And then probably thirdly, I think, we're witnessing a change of the world order, a similar moment that probably the leaders of 1918, 1945, 1960s, 1989 saw. And I do think that Kenya is going to be one of the swing states in deciding which direction the world is going to tilt. And I want to come here to learn.
Yeah, and it's a new world order.
Oh, yes.
We will talk about that in a moment. How would you characterize the relationship between Finland and Kenya?
It's very solid. I mean, there's sort of strange similarities in the sense that, remember that Finland is a fairly young nation. You know, we've been independent since 1917, and we began as a poor, developing country that had just sort of been able to lift its shackles from under the Russian Empire. And then one thing led to another, and now we've become a fairly successful country globally. And of course, Kenya as well, I mean, since independence in the 1960s has emerged and developed. Demographically, we're a little bit different. I mean, we are 5.6 million people, and you are 56.
We're 10 times
so
that,
it's a little bit, it's a little bit bigger. We've done a lot of cooperation over the years. Usually, it's been on development aid. Now, it's much more business. So, a lot of similarities. I think the value base is very similar. And when you think alike about stuff, whether it's media freedom, democracy, equality, rule of law, these sort of fundamental tenets of modern liberal democracy and society, then it's quite easy to get along.
Let's talk about your visit with Kenya's President William Ruto. We've heard about educational strategic cooperation. Could you sort of enlighten us a little bit more about the talks you've had with our president?
Yeah, sure. I mean, usually when you get together, you have sort of two formats. One is tete-a-tete, when it's just the two of you and you can talk about everything. And then one is with delegations. And the way in which I sort of deduct it is first you start with bilateral relations, then you move into global affairs, and then you look at regional stuff. So you're able to exchange notes, which is quite useful. So I was probably able to give some pointers to the president about what's going on in Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, because I had phone conversations with President Trump and President Zelensky twice last week. And then the president was able to tell me about the situation in DRC, Congo, Rwanda, Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and many other places. So this is very useful. On the bilateral side, I'd say, education was one of the focal points. And I always keep on saying that education is the foundation of civilization anywhere. And the more you focus on it, the better off I think you are. We also talked about peace mediation, where we signed a memorandum of understanding. But as I always say, final point, I think diplomacy is about, on one hand, state-to-state relations, so Finland, Kenya, and the other side is personal relations among presidents, among diplomats, among ministers. The more you know of each other, the more useful the relationship is.
Yeah, let's talk about education, because Finland is known globally for its equitable, its high-performing education system, and Kenya is in the middle of a transition towards a competency-based education system, and trying to see if we can address the disparities in terms of access and outcomes. Mr. President, what sort of principles or policy decisions do you think would be applicable for Kenya if we to sort of take lessons from Finland?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of always a little bit timid to give advice or lessons. I can just say what we did to get things right. So, first of all, pre-independence, for us, it was all about civilization and education and reading and writing and learning. That was part of our identity. That's how we wanted to be different, say, from Russia. Then, once we gained our independence, reading, writing, learning was still very much part of our DNA, whether in school or later on in university. And I think the foundation of a good education system has a few founding pillars. One, of course, is freedom of education. A second one is autonomy. I think it's very important that teachers are allowed to teach autonomously, their subject, whether it be history or chemistry or whatever it might be. Then with all of this comes respect for the teacher. I'm a firm believer in, Aristotle's thesis that there's nothing more noble than teaching the young. And I still think that applies. And that means that in Finland, for instance, in order for you to be a teacher, you need to have a master's degree. So, there are these kinds of elements that we all bring together. Now, an education system is never perfect, but if you begin from the notion of equity and then allow kids who are able to move ahead to go a little bit faster, I think you're doing quite well.
Okay. And when we stay on education, because that is something that is important, Mr. President, I know this came up in your press conference with President William Ruto. Kenyans' search for education led them to Finland for a scandal that is now, about slightly over $7 million US, or 1 billion Kenya shillings. It's parents who do the best they can. Many of them were selling literally all their assets to enable children go to school. I just wonder what your comment is on that, considering education is a key pillar in Finland.
Well, again, I can't comment on an internal matter, which from what I understand is being dealt with and
in the courts of law, yes.
Yeah, which I, hope it does. All I can speak for is that I hope that we still continue to have a flow of young Kenyan students coming over to Finland. Your average age is 19. You have a very strong youth movement. So anytime you have this sort of link to a country through education, it's very useful. I can only speak on my own example. I did my high school in Finland. I matriculated from there. But then I was able to go and study to the United States, and that's where I had my academic awakening. So for me, it was sort of an identity issue. I started to study, started to love learning, and it became a part of who I am. So if I see young Kenyan students going to Finland and getting a 3, 4, 5, even 6-year experience, I think that would be fantastic, and I hope whichever issues are being dealt with can be sorted out.
All right. Let's speak about the state of democracy in Kenya, perhaps around the world, but let's start with Kenya. President Stubb, almost a year ago, young Kenyans were out on the streets and they were clamoring for good governance, against high taxation, the cost of living, and the fight against corruption. Is this perhaps something that came up in conversation with the president, and what were your thoughts? June, July 2024 was a monumental time for Kenya in its quest towards democracy, and that made headlines around the world. What are your thoughts about the state of democracy at the moment?
Well, probably two things. First, I think June 25th became a symbol in many ways, and mainly because of the youth movement. I had the opportunity to speak to a number of NGOs, including leaders from that youth movement. So I got a pretty good picture of how they saw things. I also discussed this matter with President Ruto, and I got a picture of how he saw this thing. And again, if I may sort of commend Kenya for trying to solve issues that were related around 25th of June. Now, my second point is about democracy in general, we have to understand that liberal democracy is not an end state. It is something that you have to work at and nurture at all times. It has a few basic tenets. Elections, judiciary, separation between executive, legislative, and judiciary, rule of law, strong institutions, freedom of speech, free media, and free civil society. I think liberal democracy hasn't adapted to modern technology. So it was created, in the 1700s when everything was supposed to be very slow and cumbersome. And now we live in a technological world where direct democracy is much easier. And every country is going through different phases of how to grapple with it. Your demographic curve is probably different from the older demographic curve in Finland. So I welcome the type of youth activism, democracy that I see in Kenya, albeit I look at it from afar. But look, there are right now liberal democracies around the world, in Europe, in North America, which are putting limits to the basic freedoms, what democracy is all about. And we have to be very careful with those things. We have to make sure they don't happen. And that's why I think rule of law is the basis of everything.
Right. There's a section of young Kenyans who would feel that what you've described as happening in other parts of the world may be something that's happening here. Some who are dissatisfied with the level of investigations that are going in and are seeing a return to clamping down on those rights and freedoms. In fact, Mr. President, sometimes young Kenyans don't take too kindly to visiting dignitaries and presidents because they sometimes see that as an endorsement of a regime that they sometimes feel doesn't quite listen to them. What would be your message to them?
Yeah, no, the first message is that diplomacy is different from general governance, right? So you have diplomacy on two levels. One is state to state, and the other one is person to person. What I try to detach in my diplomacy is ideology. So there might be things that I disagree with, say, for instance, in the United States right now. There might be things that I, disagree with in any democracy. It could be a right-left issue. It could be an institutional issue. But that should not stop me from having a conversation with someone else. Now, Finland has defined their foreign policy as values-based realism. Now, values-based realism is related to this question because it means, on one hand, that you stick to your values, freedom, democracy, rule of law, human rights, fundamental rights, right of assembly, etc. But the realist in you says that you can't solve all of the world's problems, climate change, demography, technology, economy, or development, just with the people who you agree with. So, as I always say as a Finn, not everyone can be Sweden.
That's a good one. Can we talk then about what's happening in the world in general? I'd like to begin with calls for reform of the United Nations. Our own President William Ruto, and I believe you might have had this conversation when you met him last year in September, our own president is calling for reform of the UN, saying that in the manner in which it is structured now, it is ineffective towards tackling issues such as climate change, conflict, inequalities. Is this a view you share?
We're on the same page on this. Mm-hmm. So, I just finished a book which I had been writing for 4 years. It's called The Triangle of Power, Rebalancing the New World Order. Yeah. Don't worry, this is not a commercial, it's coming out next year. Now, my big thesis is that you have the global West, which is sort of trying to protect the current world order. The UN, the WTO, the IMF, the World Bank, etc. Why? Because they created it post-World War II. Then you have the global East, led by China, followed by Russia and others, who basically try to change it because they feel that it's too much skewed to the West. My argument in the book that it's going to be the global South that actually decides the next world order, just like there were deciders after World War I, after World War II, and after the Cold War. And what began this transition was, of course, the realization that demography is changing. This is the African continent is going to have 4 billion inhabitants by the end of this century, but also general development. And in that system, you have a few key states: India, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and a few others who are going to tilt this world in one way or another. Now, how do we then do this? If we want to preserve the multilateral world, so the UN, you have to give agency to the countries that don't feel like they have agency. So why do you have a Security Council which is based on the winners of World War II and veto power? I mean, that's why I myself suggested in a speech in the UN in September that the composition of the Security Council should be doubled from 5 to 10. And we should have at least 1 from Latin America, 2 from Africa, and 2 from Asia. And then Europeans can sort themselves out, because essentially we have 3 places, right? The UK, France, and Russia. So why? I say this because if we want the UN to be the center of peace as an institution, then everyone has to have a say.
Right, and part of the reforms is also of the global financial architecture,
yes,
right, which is the way it's lending. And there's people who say, look, Africa doesn't have a debt problem. Africa has a cost of debt problem, where even 25 African states are paying more towards their debt than they are enabled to invest in, say, healthcare, for instance. Where do you see that? Because some of those multilateral organizations are those that you mentioned that were formed after the World War, Second World War, and were for a completely different reality and time. Should there be a reform of the global financial architecture? And what role would a country like Finland play in that towards enabling countries of the global south, like Kenya, be on the table and able to access cheaper credit? Because they're saying, we're fine, we want to borrow, but the rates...
Too high,
Yeah.
I mean, a few observations on that. Finland, of course, is, part of a bigger group inside the IMF. And I would consider us to be reformist. Our stake is very small, and we fully understand the discrepancies in the system. So again, a shift in the power balance should take place there. As a little side note and a parenthesis, when I quit politics in 2016, before I came back, I was actually in the board of the One campaign, driven by Bono, which was, of course, a lot about debt relief and other things. And in the meanwhile, I was in the European Investment Bank, which is the biggest public bank in the world. It's actually bigger than the World Bank and bigger than the EBRD. And my approach was always to say that the financial system in the world is a little bit like the bloodstream of a human being, that if it's not flowing, you're not going to get economic growth out of it. So I do think there needs to be a rebalancing. Having said all of that, the one thing I'm a little bit worried about is that, of course, China has become the biggest creditor to a huge amount of countries in this world. So I can't give you an exact figure, but
including
there is
Kenya,
a majority of African states that have more credit from China than, say, the IMF or the other global banks. So we need to work on this together. But there is a discrepancy and injustice there we need to fix.
Okay, the New World Order. Let's talk about that. These are interesting times, Mr. President. There's lots of uncertainty, trade tensions. We know a little bit of that is easing now with the US and China having gotten an agreement to US and the UK. But what are your thoughts around how states, nations, even members of private sector would deal with a time of such uncertainty as we're living in now?
Okay, so if you're a company, you better have a chief geostrategic officer, because a lot of economy now is about, geopolitics. But I think the big picture to see here is that there are times in history when the world order changes. 1918, 1945, 1989, examples. And when the world order changes, there's always going to be disorder before it happens. And we are right now in that period of disorder. And I think it will take somewhere between 5 to 10 years. Of course, I would like to see us revert sort of back to multilateralism and international institutions, norms and rules, but that means that we have to change the power balance because countries like Kenya don't get their voices enough heard. And I say this behind your back as well, not only on TV. Don't worry about it.
All right.
And right now we're also in an interesting sort of change that we're going back to big power, not conflict necessarily, but tension. And that means that we might be going back to some kind of a concert of powers as we had in the 1800s. You know, when you have big players such as the United States, Russia, China, sort of perhaps wanting to split up or divide the world a little bit. And that means that, you know, us who are smaller players, not Kenya, but Finland, we want to go back and try to make sure that this doesn't happen. So I think the choice essentially is between multipolar disorder, so everyone for themselves, dog eats dog, and multilateral cooperation. And I want this multilateral cooperation to take place because that's when the world, in my mind at least, is more just, even for a small guy.
Where do you think Kenya stands or lies, or, you know, ways in which you can navigate these waters? Well, for instance, you know, there is the thinking that many countries in Europe, perhaps Finland as well, are moving more into defense budgets with everything that's happening with Europe's security and NATO. President Trump is saying, I'm not going to continue to commit as many or as much resources as I have to NATO, and that you're now moving, you know, from focusing more on your defense budgets. And that money's got to come from somewhere. And that you might divert some of the money that is for development in terms of agreements and cooperation between Finland and Kenya. Should Kenyans be worried about where the relationship, for instance, with Finland will go if, you know, your priorities are shifting in Europe?
No, but let me give you two answers. One is on defense. I think we're moving back towards a world where we're increasing our defense expenditure to the levels that they were actually during the Cold War. We forget that during the Cold War, you know, we were north of 5%, regardless of development aid, right? And then when history ended and we ended up living in La La Land post-1989 with green fields and peace signs and rainbows and everyone living happily ever after, people brought down their defense expenditure. Finland didn't that much because we live next to Russia. We have 1,340 kilometers of border with essentially an imperialist colonial power that has a tendency to go for power grabs as they did in Georgia and now in Ukraine. So we kept up a military. But now the pressure is back. And I think this was sort of one of these wake up and smell the coffee moments for Europe. So in Europe, the thinking was we were probably too dependent on Russian energy, too dependent on American security, and too dependent on the Chinese economy. And now, you know, we're coming back to roost a little bit. Now, I always see an opportunity in this, and this is my second answer. So don't focus too much on development aid. Focus on working with the Europeans in a manner of equal trading partners. And this is what Europe needs to understand as well, because I think Europe has tried to have the moral high ground and, you know, very difficult to get free trade agreements because of agriculture and other things. And now we need to understand that, okay, if the rules are a little bit limited, what Europe is now doing is forging these types of bilateral trade relations. So EU, you know, and Kenya, or something like that. So let's work on that instead. I think back home, actually the mentality is a little bit more, oh my God, we're putting that much on defense. Isn't that away from healthcare and education? Isn't it a zero sum? I think a lot of the defense expenditure is actually going to come from creative financial instruments.
All right. Final question, Mr. President. Kenya and Finland, just where do you see that going in what is, like you said, the period of uncertainty now, but is that why you're here? Do you now see Kenya as an important player? Because you mentioned that at the beginning in this new world order, whatever we will call it by the time we get on to the other side. So talk to us about that and why you see Kenya playing an important role and what role that would be.
Okay. One, I mean, both of these things are comfortable for me, but one is based on values. I see Kenya as a thriving democracy with hits and bumps. We all have them throughout our process, right? So I see essentially, I look at the way in which, say, Kenya reacted in the beginning of Russia's war of aggression. I look at your democratic institutions, just like in Finland, with their imperfections. But there is this sentiment of, democracy, self-correcting mechanisms, et cetera, et cetera. So easy to do. Second one is it's pure interest in the sense that I look at Kenya and I say, okay, Kenya is going to be one of the basic tipping point countries in the world. It's going to be among the 10 that decide the new world order. And I kind of want to have a good relationship with a country like that. So these are probably the two essential relations. And I had never been to Kenya. So this is my first visit, and I really wanted to see and hear what the country is like, and that's why the program is so tight for 3 days.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate your time here. And I hope you enjoy Kenya, and hopefully this won't be the last.
No, my pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so that's the President of Finland, President Alexander Stubb, who's here on a state visit in the country, speaking to us about a host of issues: democracy, the new world order, the state of the world economy. Thank you, sir.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We are here on a matter grave for our side, the Western region. This is the sale or the purported lease of 30 years to one Rai. The president said that either aende mbinguni, aende kwao, ama aweke chela. I don't know when he got sanitized. Now we are told he is the one now in charge of the very large, the only parastatal that was actively working in Zoya Sugar Company. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe there are games behind this which are not good for our people, Western region. This matter of the lease was a court matter. The court matter, it has orders here as we talk. These court orders bar the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Development. It also bars the Office of the Attorney General, the state law office, to continue with the lease, and it was given out, orders given out on 23rd of April, 2025. It states clearly that the matter was coming for 12th of May, 2025. Now the PS, in his own kind of thinking, he goes further to write a letter now here. The PS writes a letter here directing. Now the letter is written on 8th of May. When the matter is coming on 12th, which is a Monday, he writes on a Thursday, instructs all the MDs to call for a meeting on 9th now, Friday, so that on Saturday they hand over the factory in Zoya to one called Rai, the man in charge of West Kenya. We are now getting to know why they were rushing, because the matter was coming on Monday, setting a day for judgment. This is why we are saying, as people of this region, we are not going to allow Rai step and work in Zoya against the orders. Number two, we are asking if there is a disconnect between the Attorney General and the government. Because the Attorney General was served with this court order. She has not advised, or he has not advised properly, the ministry, which is government. The ministry goes on to lease, because the order bars any further contract, issues with the leasing. Now it's leased, they have the court order. Now, what will the court order do? Serve Kenyans. If we can't respect the institutions that we have in this country, I think this country is heading to where we do not know. People of Western have said no to rye because rye is the one running pan paper. And the moment rye took pan paper in 2016, there were promises that actually they will pay workers, the government will pay workers. Up to as I talk today and address this media, the staff of pan paper have not been paid from 2016. Now they are telling us that the staff of Nzoia, who have worked with Nzoia up to today, up to the day of takeover and handover, they will be vetted again, they will be reviewed, and then they are given 1 year to be in the farm, and then they will be left out. We have farmers who have money owed by Nzoia Sugar Company. The company owed them money. They are saying that it will be government which will pay, not rye. Now, when you sell a factory or lease and change the name from Nzoia to maybe Rye Sugar Mills, or whichever the name that will come, after handover, the name is changing. Farmers will sue who? Nzoia will not be existing. And then the new farmers in Bungoma have got no contract with them. They will not sue the new farm. They will not see the desolate Nzoia then. We are asking a question. My farmers in Kabuchai, Chwele, Misihu, where? They don't know the doors of the ministry here, that they come to be asking their money from here. And they will not be allowed to enter Nzoia because it will not be Nzoia by that time. I'm asking myself simple questions. If this is how we are dealing with people, and then also we are asking ourselves, where is the data document? Where is some kind of central, where is the data document that they used? There is no transparency in this matter. How many farms had to bid for this? Those are a few things I'm concerned with. We are here with the leaders. When you see seated here, all are leaders from the region. When you see my excellency Omkio Mta, when you see the Sifuna Edwin, when you see Ototi, and when you see my good friend Tindimwal, you can see that Western is concerned about the loss of this thing scrupulously. My farmers are thrown, they don't know where to go and ask for this money from. So, and also, where is the full list of farmers that in Nzoia had this kind of farmers? Peter Wanyonyi has 76,000, Wafula had 10,000. All this is their total list. They require this money and they will be paid on this date. When they did that, on 8th, 9th, there was a meeting of the MDs. And then the minister, Mutai Kagwe, releases a press statement. In this press statement, he states how he is going to pay the staff of Nzoia up to 2020, up to 30, 2026. And then there's nowhere in this statement it's written how he will pay farmers. These are the concerns we are coming here. And even the contractors, the suppliers. That's why we are here. And as Majimbo Kalasinga, the member of parliament from the region where we grow cane, I'm saying no to this man. He will not be allowed to step. We are going to organize maandamano, both air and in the ground, to make sure he cannot land. Until they will pay our farmers, until they will pay our workers, and until they will put open the tender, how things went. And if we proceed, this must be challenged even in a court of law to review the entire of this process, not to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As you are well aware, I come from Vihiga County, the senator of Vihiga County, and in Vihiga we don't grow sugar. But I have come here in solidarity with the leaders of the other counties in the region, Busia County, Bungoma County, and the Kakamega County that grow sugar. And I want to say that what we are witnessing now is what we call a hostile takeover of Nzoia Sugar Company. This time facilitated by Kenya government. And we are concerned as leaders in the region because this is a further scheme to enhance economic disorganization of our region. Because, you know, our region has heavily dependent on sugarcane, and we have seen the mess that we have been subjected to as a region. This one is going to further economically alienate our people. And I want to join my colleagues who are saying that this process was not transparent, this process was opaque, this process is corruption in the making. We cannot allow Nzoia Sugar Company, that farmers contributed to its existence through providing land, acres and acres of land, to be taken away very easily. We have been in this process before. You remember, pan paper was taken in the same manner. Pan paper that cost 20 billion shillings was sold for a mere 900 million shillings on the pretext that it was going to be revived. Right now, when you go to pan paper, nothing is happening. The former employees who used to work for pan paper are living in abject poverty. Now, they want to do the same thing to Nzoia Sugar Company. We cannot allow this to happen. We cannot allow this to happen. The principle of public participation was not applied. Farmers were not consulted. The leaders were not consulted. The employees of Nzoia Sugar Company were not consulted. So who was consulted? So we are asking the President, William Ruto, that if indeed you are behind this, then it has gone against your own promise to the people of Western that you will revive the sugar mills in 6 months. Instead of reviving, you are killing the industry. Mumias has been working for some time through this Rice brother investor. But now, why change something that is working? We are now pitting a brother to a brother in Mumias Sugar Company. Just because of self-interest. We want to say that the Luya community must be respected. When you want to make a decision about our people, about economic institution in our region, we deserve to be consulted. Our people deserve to be consulted. You cannot just come overnight and say that you want to take over a mill, a public mill, and hand it to an investor who is known to be corrupt. They say once bitten, twice shy. We have been beaten badly in pan paper, and we cannot allow Nzoia to go the same direction. We cannot allow Mumias to go the same direction. So we are here to join the people of Bungoma and to tell them that we support you. Where is the evaluation report? Because before you sell a company or before you sell a factory, you have to do evaluation report. What does the evaluation report talk about? The cost of land. What does the evaluation report talk about? The cost of assets on that land, the building, the factory, and all that. No one knows. Only a few people know. And with the way you are conducting your affairs in the sugar industry.
From the farmers. And the whole reason why the farm land was taken away